stick to your guns, so to say.
Right.
That would be my biggest piece of advice, is just to do what you want to do, trust your instinct, and try it wholeheartedly.
Mhm.
Don't let
Right.
don't let too many people try to talk you out of it, or
Mm.
you just do what you think is best.
Right.
'Cause,
Conviction.
you got all these people sort of telling you what they think you should
Right.
do. Everybody wants to sell you something, and
Awesome. So thanks so much for coming on today, Natalie. I know we've been going back and forth a little bit. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. For anyone who has not had the pleasure of meeting you, tell us a little bit about yourself and the centers you work with.
my name is Natalie Offill. I work with three different centers in Owensboro, Kentucky, and Henderson, Kentucky now. I have grown up in the business. Two of the centers are owned by my father, which is how I got into the industry. My husband and I recently bought our own location, our third location
Mm.
last. So
Oh, very
we
exciting.
Yes, so we did a big remodel on that third location and
Mm.
have business since February.
Oh, wow. Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Mm. So, were you working in the other centers like the whole time, or is this like your first jump back into the family business?
No, I've been involved in the centers from several aspects pretty much my whole life. I worked in them as a teenager, started out doing the league secretary job, review process.
Oh, yeah, that's not an easy job.
No, actually, I started that when I was 13. So that was my
Wow.
first job in the center.
Yeah.
As a child, my mom was involved too. She used to go out on calls for merchant leads, what we called them back in the
Hmm.
90s, around all the businesses, and drummed up business. So I was a tag along for,
Wow.
so
Mm.
really been involved in pretty much all of it. Went away for a few years, went off to school and did a few things, and then came
Hmm.
back to business in 2007.
Okay.
So I've
Mm.
been managing those two centers since then. And then, like I said, we opened the third center this winter.
Mhm. Oh,
Yeah.
very cool. So now what made you, I guess, decide to jump in and have your own center? Just felt like it was time, or you guys wanted to expand, or tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it was just kind of an interesting opportunity that arose. The center that we bought was owned by a family that we knew. Actually, their daughter was working for us in one of our current locations. She was a
Mm.
college student, and she had, moved 30 minutes away to go to school in our town. And
Mhm.
anyways, her father unfortunately ended up passing away, and
Mhm.
they had to sell the center. So it just kind of
Timing
organically happened.
was right. Yeah.
Right, we
Mhm.
hadn't really gone looking for it, but it happened, and it was a little dated.
Yeah.
It hadn't had a whole lot done to it. It opened in 1960. A
Wow.
lot
Yeah.
a lot of original things in there, so we did
Wow.
a really big remodel, not only to the facility itself, but the bowling aspect.
Mhm.
Well, we upgraded to string pin setters,
Oh, very cool.
put in new scoring, did synthetic overlays, all of that. And then, the actual shell of the building too needed a lot of work. We
Mm.
knocked out walls and brightened it up, repainted, new flooring, new
Mhm.
kitchen, a lot of stuff. So,
Wow. Yeah, so like a total overhaul, basically.
yes.
Yeah, that's very cool. So you went with string. What? Tell me a little bit about that, because that's controversial in some circles. How was that, and how's the decision been so far?
Well, it's been good so far. They really have functioned really well. They've had very few problems.
Mm.
The things I was really set on from the beginning in our two centers that we had previously, they have just regular Brunswick A2 pin setters
Hmm.
in them. And I have felt for quite a few years now like that's the biggest problem that we're going to hit in the
Hmm.
future, obtaining of those pin setters, because there
Right.
are so few trained mechanics.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. Hmm.
Right. So there's definitely a shortage of experience there, and not to mention major rise in cost of parts.
Right.
And then the cost of labor too, since you have full-time mechanic on duty pretty much every hour that you're open, and
Right.
then preventive maintenance that goes in to the
Hmm.
office. So
Yeah.
that was one of the things that I really wanted to try in this new location.
Hmm. Yeah, and not to mention city too.
Yes, and I can tell from my electric bill, since two of our centers are approximately the exact same square footage, their
Mhm.
number of lanes, similar square footage on the front end, and our electric bill is half.
Really, half?
So that's an
Wow.
improvement.
Yeah, I'm sure you're gonna get some calls from some of the AMF guys or whoever else who's doing the strings to talk about that. That's a big difference. Did you go with the Edge or who did you go with?
Yeah, they're the Cubica edge
Yeah,
string.
those are really nice.
They're actually so pretty themselves. You kind of
Hmm.
hate to be in the back of the house because they're fancy looking.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. Over at the expo, you can walk around back and look at them, and it's pretty nice. And it's like not like that crazy amount of moving parts. It's pretty simple.
They are really very simple, and I don't have a whole lot of time in on them yet. Like I said, we've only been open since February, so I
Right.
can't speak to longevity, but they have been relatively drama free.
Hmm.
And as someone that has grown up in the bowling center business, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of which, was there anything like going from working, with your parents and their centers to having your own that you were not expecting or it's something that popped up, or is it pretty much business as usual from day one?
Well, it's been pretty much business as usual. I feel like I
Hmm.
had an idea of what to
Yeah.
expect. There have been some differences. This is in a different market, so kind of had to get into that community and meet some of the former bowlers. That was sort of
Mm,
it was getting some of
right.
the previous league bowlers to try out the strings.
Oh yeah.
And they're not sanctioned, so we don't have any sanctioned leagues, but we were able
Hmm.
to five different casual leagues
Hmm.
right now, and they've gone over pretty well, actually.
Hmm.
The seniors league bowling, which I think is a pretty big sell for seniors to be trying out something
Right. That's a good
you
point.
so progressive.
Hmm.
So, anyways, they're bowling on it, and they're having a good time. They
That's
like the
awesome.
fewer, the bowling experience is better. There are fewer breakdowns.
Right.
Um,
Hmm.
not any reasons to have to move lanes. So there's a
Hmm.
lot there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really exciting. And I think you're onto something anyway, is that I mean, at least from the people I've talked to, there's definitely less of the sanctioned leagues and more of those like kind of social leagues like you're talking about, usually a little bit shorter and more, not as quite as competitive. So it seems like that would work really well for the string machines.
It does, and we would like to get some of the more competitive business eventually too. But
Hmm.
this was just an unusual situation. The center that we bought had been closed down for almost 2 years. It closed during the COVID shutdown, and then the owner passed away and it didn't reopen. So by the
Yeah.
time people were already not bowling, so it's not like coming
Yeah.
into an existing league.
Right.
Hey, we're gonna put in strings next week.
Right. Yeah.
And
Right. That helps a lot.
so right, it was easier to
Yeah.
start scratch.
Right. Yeah. They're probably just thankful to be able to bowl.
They are, and the center looks a lot better than it did when they were coming there.
Right. Yeah.
So they're
Mhm.
appreciative.
Yeah. So you got strings you were saying you have today and maybe some of the non-sanctioned social leagues. What else is working for you guys? You're a couple, about 8 months in. What are some of the other things that are working for you at the center?
I mean, honestly, we're doing a lot of things that we just have kind of always done. We're
Hmm.
doing it's in a smaller community, so more traditional experience. We're just doing, office parties and birthday parties and moonlight
Yeah.
bowls, all those
Hmm.
things you would find in a traditional center. So
Hmm.
something that we are doing that's different than our other centers is we have a better kitchen with an expanded food service. So that's a first
Nice. Yeah.
a thing that we're trying.
Hmm.
And then we're also getting ready to reopen the bar aspect in this we've had bar sales, but we remodeled the bar area, and we're trying something really interesting. We left 8 of the original lanes with those pinsetters.
Okay.
So it's a 24 lane house. We put strings on 16, and then the other 8 we left with the traditional pinsetters.
Okay.
Well, actually 7 now, because you can't the kickbacks don't fit next to each other.
Oh, okay.
You lose you lose a lane. So
Interesting. Yeah.
um,
Learn something every day.
we put our new strings on lanes 9 through 24, which have become 1 through 16. And then
Yeah.
we lost lane 8, which we
Okay.
ended up naming our bar area the Lost
Oh,
Lane.
I like that. I like
Lane.
that.
Yeah, lanes 1 through 7 have become A through G.
Okay.
And we actually pulled out all the scoring and everything down there and are just offering it as an extension of the bar for parties and things. Keep your own.
Yeah. Oh,
Not
okay. Like the old school.
yes,
Very cool. And
but it's actually getting ready to reopen in November, so we'll see what
okay.
happens.
Yeah. I'd be curious to hear if how people like that. Because I know there's still centers out there, not many, but still people who do that. And it's kind of like a, old timey experience kind of thing.
Right. So we're
Mhm.
definitely going here. This will be a fun thing. Come out with your friends and drink some beer, drink some
Mhm.
bourbon, have some food.
Right.
This is not for your competitive bowler. This is for
Right.
fun.
Hmm.
So we're gonna try this new thing and see how it goes. And
That's really cool.
I got a pool table in there and just going for a real nostalgic feel down there.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. I mean, I think most centers are seeing a pretty good wave this year and, just kind of a upward trend. And I think that kind of retro theme is one of the driving factors. Just people like that. There's just not many things like that you can do today.
They don't. And it's really interesting in bowling centers because people aren't necessarily looking for, a real sterile feel. They like them to be personal.
Hmm.
They want them to be updated and clean and nice, but they also want them to have that hometown.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
character. Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm. Yeah.
And they really people tend to become attached to a particular house, it seems like. So, they get used to having their, oh, my kid had their birthday party there, a whole week there.
Hmm.
They're very attached to their specific place and
Right.
they, but not too much change.
Right.
Just
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You got to do it slowly. Yeah. No, that's really cool. And I like that you guys are going bigger on the food offering because that seems to be a trend too, where people want like a real meal, not just like, soft drinks and a pretzel. They want like an actual quality meal when they're bowling. I've seen.
right.
Mhm.
Right. So we're keeping sort of, typical things that you would expect, nothing too fancy, but really
Mhm.
good quality, cooked fresh.
Mhm.
All
Yeah. And then I guess, and you said the bar hasn't started yet, or you're still doing some things at the bar, but the bar area is not open.
part of the bar has been open, but we haven't opened our retro lanes or our pool table yet. We're getting ready to open those in
Mm.
November. So
Very
it's,
cool.
you can go down there and get a drink, but
Mhm.
it hasn't
Mhm.
had the extra entertainment aspect added yet.
Right. Okay. And so what would you say right now is your biggest challenge at your center?
Well, most people would say staffing, and that
Yes.
we've actually been really lucky with staff to an extent.
Mm.
I'm lacking in I actually break them down into two categories. I know a lot of people have, hourly workers and managers, but I basically
Mhm.
have all adults and kids,
Yeah. Right.
high school kids, college kids, and I have a lot of those, but I'm lacking in the adult,
I see. Mhm.
assistant managers and things like that. So
Right.
that is what we really have struggled with since we've
Mhm.
opened that aspect. But we do have a lot of younger people working for us, and that is good in some ways. They're outgoing and enthusiastic and happy to
Mhm.
be. There's limitations to what they can do.
Sure. Yeah. And their experience.
Their life experience, yeah,
Right.
you need that when dealing with customers. So
Right.
yeah.
So what's worked well for you for having some of the younger people? Because I've some people find that they can make it work. Some people are just like, oh, these kids are just on their phone and they don't do any work. So what are some things that you've done that to be able to get them to get a good staff with that?
I think the key with the younger kids is just keeping them, you have to keep them engaged. You
Mhm.
can't leave them. They can be independent, but you have to find ways to keep them working together and working with you. I talk to, we have 3 different locations, and I talk
Mhm.
to my staff in those 3 locations multiple times a week.
Mhm.
Every single person, I know what's going on with them. I
Mm.
just try to stay engaged with
Yeah.
them And then, you can't be too rigid either. If they want to have Friday night off to go to homecoming, well,
Hmm.
you find a way to let them have Friday
Right.
night to go to
Yeah.
home. So
Exactly.
it's a give and take,
Hmm.
you've got them and they're willing to work for a little bit less money, but
Right.
you to be able to give them the time off that they need as well.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's always sort of a matter of just finding that line and staying right on that tightrope.
Yeah, that's really, I like that you say that about like engaging them, because you're right. If you can like keep them in tension and almost like make it a little bit fun, or like some kind of like, I guess like you said, engagement, then you get a little more attention then.
Yes, and I've encouraged all of them to join a league.
Mm,
That's a really effective thing. Get them actually interested in bowling.
yeah, that's a good idea. Smart.
That's an easy thing too for you to offer as a perk,
Hmm. Right.
um, okay, but you you
Yeah.
can.
Right. Right. Exactly. That's really cool. And then,
And
so do they do like their own leagues, or what kind of league do you have them join?
well, actually, most of them now are involved in an existing league, which is great. Although we did try an employee league over the summer, and that was a lot of
Hmm.
fun. We haven't kept it going. There's just been a lot going on,
Yeah.
gearing up for winter season and everything.
Right.
But they've all pretty much found a league that they like, and it's interesting
Interesting.
to watch them get competitive.
Right. Yeah.
So
To get good. Yeah.
yeah, so
Mm. That's
that's
really
been
cool. Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. I like that.
right.
Cool. So I'd imagine then also with the, having them engaged, you probably have a pretty good retention rate too, since you're talking to them. I find like that's another big piece of it for staffing.
It is. Everybody wants to feel like they belong somewhere, and
Hmm.
you spend a lot of time in your job. And, even if you have a high school kid that's working for you 15 hours a week, well, if they're in school, a large portion of that, and then they're giving up 3 or 4 weeknights or a weekday
Hmm.
after, they want to feel like they enjoyed their time there.
Right.
They can't just be going to work. You know, they need to have another reason to be there, and
Mm,
have become friends with the other team members. They all get along. That's important too, is making sure
yeah.
that only can they do whatever job you're asking them to do, but do they fit as part of the rest of the team?
Yeah. It's like a culture fit.
It is. It's a whole
Hmm.
culture. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the best thing that you can do for retention, in my opinion, is
Hmm.
a company culture that they're proud to be a part of and enjoy.
Hmm. Is that something that you do intentionally to create that culture, or is that something that just kind of happens because of, the principles you guys live by, or how does that come about?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure that we went out trying to create that. It's just kind of happened.
Hmm.
We are a family business, so that was already sort of our culture. We pretty tight knit group. So as we've gotten a little bit bigger, that's just spilled over into the
Mm.
newest season. And you
Yeah.
know, there's a lot of push now to keep things personal and local and all that. And it really
Yeah.
does work.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure that plays right into your hands.
It's a good
Mm.
thing. Yep.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point you make about the culture, because, like the people who have problems with staffing, usually the first thing I look into when I talk to them is what's their retention, because it doesn't matter how many new candidates you get in the door. If you can't keep them for more than a month or so, then fix that problem first. That's the real issue.
Oh, and that's just terrible because you spend so much time.
Right.
Everybody,
Hmm.
someone that's your time that you're investing in
Hmm.
them.
Right.
So the
Hmm.
better the better job you can do getting your culture, into a happy team environment, the easier it's going
Hmm.
to be.
Right. Yeah, you get a higher output, right? People are happy, they want to do the best for the company versus someone who's disengaged.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to jump to the next one is the future. So where do you see things going in the next 2-3 years or so for the bowling industry?
Oh goodness. Well, hopefully onwards and upwards. Yeah, I feel like the last few years, and especially since COVID, things have been pretty good for bowling centers. Despite all of the gaming and,
Mhm.
options that there are for people to stay home and not leave their house. It
Right.
seems
In home. Hmm.
it's entertainment, right? It seems like people are really still loving bowling centers because of it provides an easy way to socialize. It's something
Right.
most people of any physical capability can participate in. It, you
Hmm.
know, it's inside, you're free from worrying about the weather. So, I hope that just continues.
Hmm.
We also have been experiencing sort of an increase in bowling in the sport itself just because of high schools adding. That's been kind of a nice grassroots thing. It's improved our youth bowling leagues.
Hmm.
It's, I think, brought us in a lot of new families just because they may not have been thinking about bowling before, but all of a sudden their kids on the bowling team, and
Right.
oh, they realize, hey, I might come here for my, girls' night out and sit in the bar and
Right. Yeah.
have
Absolutely.
a drinks, or it's brought in different kinds of business that you wouldn't expect just for
Hmm.
bowling.
Yeah. And that's something that you started? It went to the school, or they just happen to have a team, or how does that get kicked off?
We started it several years ago. We have in our town, we have four different high schools, and we had some parents that were really
Mm.
interested and started. So
Mm. Okay.
it involved us actually meeting with the athletic directors at the schools to explain to them, how it would work logistically, since it's a
Right.
thing that's not happening at the school, like
Right.
basketball or football. They've got to use our facility. So it just took having a few conversations with them about getting the kids there, and timing and all that sort of thing to make the program happen. But
Hmm.
it's been a positive thing, and it seems like it's getting bigger in different parts of the country.
Yeah,
It was
absolutely.
in high school, so
Right. Yeah, me neither. But yeah, you're right. I have heard that from a couple different places that high school bowling is on the rise.
yes, yes.
Hmm.
It seems like you're seeing bowling in a lot of national, advertisements. You're flipping
Right.
and see people at the bowling center,
Hmm.
part of it. I don't know. It's just it seems like it's more in the public eye than it used to be.
Hmm. Yeah, there's definitely like a trend or like a wave that they're riding, it seems, you know.
Definitely, and I feel like we've been improving our image for ourselves. You're not
Mhm.
that old smoky place that your dad and grandpa went to
Right. Yeah,
on their
I call it the Big Lebowski.
right. So I feel like as a whole has made a real effort
Mhm.
to turn that image around, and
Yes.
you're actively participating. People are seeing you as a family destination and
Right.
not that skeezy, dark,
Right.
smoky.
Exactly. Yeah, like more the family entertainment center.
Right.
Hmm. Yeah, I've definitely yeah, it definitely is a better connotation with it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the bowling alley is less of a pejorative now, it seems.
Yes. Most people are saying bowling center
Right.
or family entertainment center,
Mm.
whatever.
Right. Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
Whatever you want to, don't call it bowling.
Right. Okay. Well, the only other thing I wanted to ask you is actually be very prudent or relevant for you is, say you have a new first time proprietor, what would be your top piece of advice to them? You just went through it, and you've grown up with it, just went through it yourself. What would be your top piece of advice to that new proprietor?
Oh my, that's a really hard one. Oh, I, it's hard to say. Speaking from my personal experience, what I just went through is, and I have experience in the industry, but I think trusting your instinct, even if it is a new field to you,
Hmm.
you try something new and you want to try new things and kind of branch out. But if something sounds like it's just too good to be true, it probably is.
Sure. Yeah.
You definitely try new things, but also trust what you know as
Hmm.
well. Don't be afraid to stick to your guns, so to say.
Right.
That would be my biggest piece of advice, is just to do what you want to do. Trust your instinct and try it wholeheartedly.
Hmm.
Don't let don't let too many people try to talk you out of it, or you just do what you think is best.
Right.
'Cause,
Conviction.
you've got all these people sort of telling you what they think you should
Right.
do. Everybody wants to sell you something, and obviously influence you, but ultimately it's, your money invested, and
Right,
so
right.
you got to be able to live with what you decide.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
it
like
was
that.
a lot of I actually just had this discussion yesterday. My phone popped up with a memory from a year ago when
Mhm,
we and I said, I am so glad all
mhm.
of the decisions that were made, or
Right.
how overwhelming it was. And I'm
Yeah.
out of that stage.
I can imagine. Right.
Mhm. Good to
Yeah.
be honest, and you know,
Mhm.
doing more of the fine tuning instead of, oh, are we going to put in strings, and how many lanes are we going to put them in on, and what version of scoring should we get, and
Mhm.
do I need 2 fryers or 4? It just was overwhelming. So,
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, just the decision fatigue.
yes, that I like that term. I'm gonna use
Yeah,
decision fatigue.
it's tough. Yeah, just, so many out there and you're trying to do the best for each one and you don't know?
Right, you don't know until you try it, so you've gotta just
Mhm.
make your
Right.
best decision, and then just kinda run with it, because you can overthink it years if you want to.
Right. Right. Yeah, and it's not
Some
very
point,
productive. Right.
right.
Exactly. I like that. Yeah, and I like that you go with conviction as the top piece of advice because especially for someone at first time, there's a lot of that uncertainty. Is it going to work out? So you're saying trust your gut. I like that.
Yep,
Mhm.
definitely.
Awesome. Well, I want to respect your time, Natalie. I've really enjoyed this conversation. If anyone wants to reach out to learn more about Diamond Lanes, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
They can email me, they can message us on Facebook or anything.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Like I said, this is, goes out to other proprietors out there to learn the lessons of what's working for others. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us today.
Oh, well, I
Mm,
appreciate you having me. I
mm,
certainly don't know everything, but I just keep at it every
mm.
day.
That's right. A little bit better each day.
That's what
Mm,
I'm going for. Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Natalie. I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Okay, thanks
Mm,
so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.